Okay, so hello everyone, good morning. Just to show my face for a few seconds, I am Marinos Tsantekidis, and I will be joined by Tatjana and George in this session for secure runtime environments. And I guess without any further delay, we should go ahead with the presentations. Tatjana will go first, presenting CONCORDIA EU project. Tatjana, the floor is yours.
Good morning, Marinos. Thanks for your invitation and giving me the floor. I will switch off the camera so that connection will be better and going further with my presentation. I'm presenting as a member of the CONCORDIA project, Cybersecurity Competence for Research and Innovation. Actually, CONCORDIA is one of 4 pilot projects founded by the Horizon 2020 Research and Innovation Program. The goal is to integrate all the stakeholders that are important to enable the digital sovereignty in Europe, and for that reason we decided to put us many different activities, and we are now running already for the second half of the project. But more details will follow. Just maybe a word from where I'm coming. I'm coming from the University of Maribor from Slovenia, Faculty of Electrical Engineering and Computer Science, and I'm leading the database technology lab, where also the security part is running. So I hope my computer will follow me. As I said, Europe needs to gain the digital sovereignty, and the CONCORDIA is supporting it in this way. CONCORDIA's main vision is integration of fragmented European cybersecurity competence into a strong European security competence network. For that reason, as I mentioned already before, they are very important, all stakeholders that we joined in this pilot project, as I mentioned, one of 4. Project duration is 48 months and started on 1st January 2019 and will run until the end of 2022. And European funding contribution is a little bit less than 16 million. Between all 4 pilots that I mentioned already before, that were established under the initiative to enable operative cybersecurity competence network to develop and implement a common cybersecurity and innovation roadmaps, are all of quite big size, but the biggest one is CONCORDIA. I'm sorry, in some moments my computer stopped going further, so I'm sorry if I stopped in some of the slides. As I mentioned, we are the biggest one with 52 official partners, 27 research organizations or academia, 23 industry partners, including 6 SMEs, 2 public body and other types of organization. We are representing 16 EU member states and 3 Horizon 2020 associated countries, as well as United Kingdom. On the slide, you can see the participation countries' flags, as well as logos of academia on the left side, the industry on the right side, the organization mentioned before down there, and separate also SMEs, while in the center are the core partners and the leading institution code who is coordinating the whole project. On the next two slides, we will follow the Concordia's main objectives: building the European secure, resilient, and trusted cybersecurity ecosystem. Then bringing expertise to European policymakers and industry, providing Concordia's cybersecurity roadmap for Europe, developing new innovative market-ready cybersecurity solutions, scaling up existing research and innovation with virtual labs and services, establishing an European education ecosystem for cybersecurity. And these are, as I said, the main objectives. These objectives are main actually in all four pilots in some way. They have the common points, and under the support and proposal of European Commission, all four projects are also cooperating on some fields that are common, on some more intensive, on some less intensive. And Concordia is, between others, leading the European education ecosystem for cybersecurity, but more details you will be able to see later on. If you're visiting our webpage, the title of the webpage you will be able to find on the last slide. You can see this main service board where the stakeholders groups can connect, where you can explore the research, where we have the part for education that I pointed out before, a little bit more stronger. Then the develops with the industry application, connecting different partners and including PhD students. Then we have a support for startups, policymakers with assisting support. We are promoting women in cyber as well, and equality in this area. So in the task dealing with women in cyber, we will come to this separately. We are involving, of course, all genders and doing exchange of knowledge and experiences, but supporting especially young researchers, students, even those from the secondary schools, to find the cybersecurity as an important possible way for their life. We have interviews, panels, discussions under the talks, and under the explains you can find many of our blogs, videos and animations, as well as infographics. In the blog, we regularly promoted our activities and open important topics according to the activities that are running during the time. Concordia, important part is exploring, doing the research, which is going from the university further to the companies and give new results that then are presenting. So the main goal is enabling close research collaboration through these activities and providing research results to the community and public. We are going also beyond that, establishing a new smaller research group that they are starting to cooperate between each other and pointed the main work in the fields that are maybe not so detailed covered in the Concordia. Concordia research pillars is presented here. We are oriented finally on user-centric security, and it is also holistic and data-driven adaptive approach to cyber security, which is going from the devices over the network, software systems, data application to the already mentioned user-centric security. Concordia's industrial impact, it's very important for us as well. I mentioned already before the cooperation with the academic partners, with the research institutions, as well as between partners themselves. We are trying to develop new solutions for vertical industrial pilots and cross-sectoral pilots using innovative cybersecurity tools. So connections, either vertical, horizontal, and crossover are for us very important, and we invest in them quite a lot of energy. Concordia focuses on 5 industrial fields that were possible to be seen also on the schema of partners that we saw at the beginning. We selected telecom, finance and insurance, e-mobility and e-charging, e-health, and vehicles and vehicle communication systems. In all these, we have strong leading industrial partners who are presenting their work, their needs, and further cooperation. We are, of course, doing also cross-sectoral industrial pilots and research that was mentioned before, with the point on threat intelligence and DDoS clearing house. Concordia is trying also to bring in latest information on research, legislation, economic experts, or founding opportunities to European cybersecurity landscapes. And tomorrow, between others, Concordia will organize the meeting for the national cybersecurity centers that were developed in the members' countries to present the opportunity to connect also these additional national levels for further activities. What all we are bringing, giving, it's possible not only see in our presentations, YouTube channel and blogs, but also on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. So we are active in all these possibilities. We are offering expertise to particular technical, legal, or business topics in cybersecurity and talks at events of different aspects of cybersecurity, similar like today. We are participating also in the conference events, either presenting the Concordia itself or some of the talks. We are supporting also the students in summer schools connected to cybersecurity. So in Maribor, we hosted in 2020 the HiPEAC cybersecurity conference, and in the frame of this, we have the presentation of Concordia, the Women in Cyber, and summer school for students. We are building an European education ecosystem for cybersecurity also through this. Not only through the activities that I mentioned, but also through the providing the information about existing courses for cybersecurity for professionals. So every year we are refreshing this map that you can see on the right side, where are the partners who are offering the courses for cybersecurity. And every year we are adding new or changing the old one, but we are also creating new courses and developing a skill certification scheme. At the moment, we are running the practical part of a cybersecurity consultant course on Coursera. The first part, the theoretical part, was done, and yesterday we started the practical one, and then the certification and exams will follow. We are cooperating also in the virtual labs with cyber ranges. We are also active in other promotions where the women in cybersecurity are coming out, in the sense also of helping in career development and promoting open positions. So as we announcing and bringing together people for the webinars, meetings, and similar, we are also trying to bring people together for their career opportunities. And here it's very important, the part of women in cyber. We developed in the first part of the Concordia the manifesto for today, in which we put 3 important awareness for the women and young women in cybersecurities. So about the cybersecurity culture, about the multidisciplinarity, and we promote positive role model of putting forward pragmatic manner how family life and career in cybersecurity are possible. And we are covering the areas of education, entrepreneurship, industry, investments, legal and strategy, as well as research. I allowed me to tell you a little bit more in the phase of education and women in cyber, because these 2 are also my main activities. And we are going slowly in the last part of my presentation. I mentioned already at the beginning that we are also in the assistant roles, supporting business growth and making the policy and strengthening also the competitiveness. And here is quite strong also the work with the SMEs that have the support in the informations from our side, and the parts that were mentioned already before. Gathering numerous stakeholders groups to exchange, discuss, and actions at the European security landscape is for us of the great importance, and actually one of the main goals and motivations that we are doing. Stakeholders groups are for us very important, so they are informed, as well as the partners and other public, also by our newsletter, but otherwise they are organized as national cybersecurity competence centers and agency stakeholders group, which is the newest one, and we'll have the meeting tomorrow, as I mentioned. Then observer stakeholders groups and liaison stakeholders groups that were already actives, and they can, as I mentioned, get all the information through the stakeholders newsletter, as well as newsletter for Pan-European cybersecurity startup community, because we said that we are going beyond the mentioned goals and the plans, as well as also the beyond the Europe, because the cybersecurity is not connected just on one project, just on one pilot, or just on one country, but it's something what connecting us, and the cooperation is more than needed, and the projects like Concordia is enabling us. More details and more information you can find on our webpage, as well as Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, all the social environments in which we are active. I would like to thank for your patience, and if there are any questions, I'm available. Something I can see in the chat. So there are two questions. I suppose I can answer it shortly. What is the greatest finding and impact of Concordia in the last 2 years? This is really hard to say, because there are many findings in many ways, and in the project we are finally almost 70 partners, and I would like to point out, for example, the roadmaps on which we started, the pilots that were done together with the industry and the separate partners, the legal frames where we are discussing also this may be more soft part, but very important part in all this. I hope I answered, otherwise we can chat more later on after the end of the whole session. And the second one, are there any current courses which are open to general public? At the moment, we are running the pilot course, which is open for the partners or the partners that were cooperating with us when we start to prepare these activities. But in autumn, we plan to have this open course for the cybersecurity consultant. And if you are following later on our webpage or order our informations, you will be able to get this information, but you can always contact me, or if you're sending me an email when we will open the course, I can inform you about this. I would finish with that, and if there is any other comment or whatever, I'm available and will be available also after this session. Thank you.
Thank you, Tatjana. We're a few minutes behind, but that's okay. I guess George can continue now. George, the floor is yours.
Okay, can I share my screen?
Yes, of course. Tatjana, can you stop sharing?
Just a moment. I'm just stopping. The screen is yours, George.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I'm George Hatzivasilis. I am a postdoc researcher in the Foundation for Research and Technology in Greece. So I will now stop my video. Okay. So now I will present you a research project in a European research project called Threat Arrest, which aim is to develop a cyber ranges platform for advanced security training. So what are cyber ranges? In general, they are interactive simulated representations of an organization's network, system, tools, and applications that are connected to a simulated internet level environment. And the goal is to have a safe environment in order to gain hands-on cyber security skills and a secure environment for product development and security posture testing. In this market, based on Gartner, it is expected that it will reach the 1.5 billion until this year. So this is an identity card for the project. The name is Threat Arrest. It has 15 partners. The duration is 3 years, and it will end this August. So the overall aim of the project is to develop an advanced training platform with emulated, simulated components, as well as serious games and advanced visualization capabilities, in order to prepare various stakeholders with different types and responsibilities in organizations, in order to defend high-risk cyber systems and be able to counter advanced, known, as well as new type of attacks. So the main objectives is to offer training for known advanced cyber attack scenarios, new cyber attack scenarios, as well as the use of different security tools, and how to take different types of actions for preparedness, detection and analysis, incident response, and post-incident response actions. So in general, for our methodology is model-driven, and it is based on a formalism that it is called cyber threat and training preparation, from now on CTTP modeling, which is an approach that we try to model the system structure, as well as its digital assets and some security features, the threats that it faces and stuff like that. And our method is consisted of 4 phases. At first, we analyze a pilot system, and we try to find out the vulnerable points and stuff like that. Then we create the CTP models where we define a training program in order to train the users of the system in a virtual twin of the actual system in a safe environment, as I aforementioned, in order to defend this setting. So we create virtual labs with emulated simulated components of the digital twin of the actual system, and then we train the user, we get feedback. And also one novelty of the project is that we also check the actual system and audit the actual system for a period after the training, in order to see if the users are actually doing what they have learned in the course, if they also adapt these behaviors in the actual system. Because the goal is not just the training, but also to increase the security level in the actual system. Yeah, so this is also something that we call post-training auditing. And here is what we try to model with these CTTP models. At first, we have, for each training program, we have the core CTTP training model, which includes the scenarios, the courses, the trainee types and stuff like that. And then for advanced training, we have virtual labs with emulated components that are implemented in OpenStack. They are actually VMs that are managed by OpenStack. We have simulated components that are implemented in the JASIMA simulator. And also, in order to make in order to provide realistic training, we also have a data fabrication platform that is provided by IBM in order to produce realistic synthetic data, for example, system log files, network traffic, and stuff like that. And another feature is that we also have gamification, serious games that the user can be trained in a more pleasant manner, let's say. And we have at the moment around 3 games. So the one is the Protect game that you see here, and we also have the awareness quiz. game, and we are also preparing another one. So in the first phase, as I say, we have the analysis. So we have three means to perform this analysis. One is to utilize one of our tools that it's called the assurance tool, that it performs automated analysis. So it runs some software, it tries to find out which are the installed hardware and the software components that are running in the actual system. And based on this information, it searches for known vulnerabilities in SVE repositories and Metasploit. And based on this information is provided then to the trainer in order to tailor the training program. And we also examine system logs in order to produce realistic fabricated log files in the digital twin system. And also we have personnel interviews in order to analyze some behavioral aspects of the organization. So here is a high-level view of the tool that we use, of the assurance tool, that it installs some event captors in the pilot system in order to gather some information. It runs OpenVAS in order to find out automatically what are the services that are running in the system. And then it searches for in repositories with vulnerabilities in order to see which are the currently known threats for this system. And this is a high-level view that the trainer sees when he logins in the assurance tool. He sees some of the currently available courses that we have, along with the threats that they are tackling and stuff like that. And then the trainer runs the assurance tool in the pilot system. And the assurance tool exports the current threats of the system. And the assurance tool maps the currently available courses to this thread. So it assists the trainer in order to choose specific courses and build the training programming. And if there is not currently available course for some of their vulnerabilities, like the ones that you see here, the tool assists the user in order to produce automatically an outline of the course, and then the trainer fills the empty fields, and it finalizes a course for this uncovered thread, let's say. And then once we have established the programming, it begins the training. And the first part of each course is a typical training with lectures, tutorials, and stuff like that. And except for this, we can also have advanced training with the virtual labs that has simulated or emulated components and serious games. And in these virtual labs, we also have three mechanisms in order to automatically evaluate if the trainee has performed the correct actions. And we have evaluation reports that are close-ended questionnaires. We have event captors that have been pre-installed in the virtual lab and automatically check if the user has performed the correct actions for the specific instantiation of the virtual lab. And also we have simulated attacks. So the CTP modeling offers us the option in order to have let's say a core virtual lab, and then at an instantiation time to instantiate specific threats based on our initial analysis. For example, we could have a backend server, and in the first run to train the user to populate, let's say, ransomware in this server. And in the second iteration, we could populate a simulated denial of service attack in this virtual lab. And the user would perform the specific actions in its case. And here is the educational part of the training programming. We have the learning path. As I say earlier, at first we begin with the course preparation, where we perform some analysis in the actual system, like the street model or the attack mitre. we found out the vulnerabilities of the system, and then we create the programming. And we also try to correlate the programming with professional specificational programs from ISACA and IECS square in order to increase the visibility of our solution. Then we have the training. And in the training, we are trying to support the Bloom's taxonomy, and we try to build to promote build skilling and higher order of thinking. And when the trainee completes the programming, we get also some feedback for future iterations. So here again, the overall picture. As I say, we begin with initial analysis, the installation of the assurance tool, which also have some event captors installed in the pilot systems. Then we design the programs and we tailor them with specific professional specification programs, certification programs. Then we have the training itself, both typical and advanced training. And then we have the collection of the evaluation of the users. And what I say earlier, the post-training evaluation. So we utilize the installation of the assurance tool in the system, and we periodically rerun the assurance tool in order to find out if the trainees are applying what they are learning in the actual system. And this approach is performed continuously, and we continuously evaluate if the user applies the learned material in the pilot system and if the actual security level of the system is increasing. And we continuously adapting the overall training until we reach a specific targeted security level in the pilot system. And here is our vision for the integrated platform. What we try to support is to have modern delivery models. So it will be either as CyberRange in a box, where we go with a server in the pilot's premises and we install everything there, we perform the training, and then we erase all material, also for confidentiality issues, or we will install it in a cloud provider and the trainees will access the platform through internet. And this is also the current implementation where we have installed this solution in the cloud provider release web. And we have prepared three complete training programs so far. The first one is for general users, for simple users with low or no cybersecurity skills. It is called the security awareness. The stars that you see are the difficulty levels and are based on Cisco certifications. So the easiest part is foundation. Then we have practitioner, intermediate, and expert. And these are the courses of the first programming, the easiest one. So we start with an introduction to cybersecurity. Then we learn some password management issues and how to use KeePass. And then we have phishing and social engineering and how to use OpenPGP. And we also will include other two courses, one for COVID-19 social engineering and cybersecurity issues, and another one for GDPR compliance. And the second programming that we are preparing is the edge system security, where we also have some advanced courses based on our pilots. One is for secure configuration in a smart home environment, and another is a navigation combo attack in smart transportation. And also we have the hardest programming, the backend security manager, where we have some components for malicious software analysis, for network security and monitoring, for digital forensic analysis, and also for red blue team scenarios. And I think I do not have time, but I have prepared also to show you a demo. So I will be fast for this. We have also a demo for one virtual lab. So we have a smart shipping pilot for the Danao shipping scenario. This company has a backend system which also facilitates the communication with the vessels via satellite communication. And the vessels have some IoT and other equipment on board on the ship. So for the virtual lab, we emulate the backend system and the captain's PC on the vessel, and we simulate the IoT and other on-deck navigation equipment of the ship. So here is the trainee. The trainee logins the platform and sees some general information about the programs that are available for him in his course. Then the trainee can select one of the scenarios. Here he selects the scenario that I have mentioned, and he sees some descriptions as well as some training material that you see here. And this scenario is for phishing attacks and GPS spoofing. Then the trainee can start the emulated components. So the emulated components is a Windows 10 machine, which is the captain's PC. And the trainee will receive some emails that are originated to the captain. And some of them are legitimate, some of them are faulty, and some of them are malicious. And these emails are directing the captain in order to start a journey, a trip with the vessel and go to some destination. So here you see the web access to the VM machine via Guacamole. And here the trainee automatically receives some emails. So all this information has been described in the CDP models, as well as the emails that will be populated to the trainee. So the trainee checks this content. And then based on these decisions, the trainee will complete an evaluation report in order to be automatically evaluated if he understands which emails was malicious or not. And then in the second phase, the captain, which is a trainee, will start a simulated journey. And based on this information, he has to define which is the destination of the trip based on the emails that he received in the first part. And then he begins the simulated journey. So here you see the red dot, which is the vessel, and goes from the Heraklion port to Athens. And in the course, there is also a GPS spoofing attack that has to be observed by the trainee. So the trainee correlates the readings from the GPS simulated component as well from the compass, and he has to spot that there is an ongoing GPS attack and perform some mitigation actions. And after this, the trainee is evaluated automatically. So here it is shown the automated evaluation of the trainee. And also the trainee has the option to play a serious game, the Protect game, which here is the card game that you see. The trainee has the green cards that are some defenses. And then there are some, the red cards denote some attacks. So the trainee has to choose the correct defense for the ongoing attack. And the main novelties, in order to summarize, is that we have automated security vulnerability analysis. We have CTP modeling of the overall process, post-training evaluation, continuous security assurance and programming adaptation, realistic virtual labs, multi-layer simulation and modeling, and incorporating of serious games, and alignment with professional certification programs. So here are the partners of the project, and this was my presentation. Do you have any questions?
Thank you, George. I don't see any questions in the Q&A window. I guess we can, because we're a little bit behind schedule, if there are any questions, we can talk about them in the virtual room after the session. So I can continue with my presentation.
Mm-hmm.
Let me share. Okay. So before I start, I'd like to say that Eneko, the session host, will share a link in the chat, which will be a virtual room. If any of you want to join after the session, it won't take more than 15-20 minutes. So if you want, we can discuss further there, anything that you might, any questions that you might have. So hopefully you can see my screen. Wait a minute. Let me stop the video. Okay. Hello all. My name is Marinos Tsantekidis. I am a PhD researcher at the Technical University of Braunschweig in Germany, and I also hold a research assistant position at the Institute of Computer Science at Forth in Greece. And I will be presenting to you today our work along with my supervisor, Vasilis Prevelakis, on secure runtime environments as part of these two EU projects that my colleagues presented earlier. So first, I will an outline of my presentation. I will first say a few introductory words about what we are doing, and then offer details about the design and implementation of our proposed approach within Concordia. Following, I will present two training exercises that we offer as part of our effort within threat arrest, and then I will say a few words for our ideas and plans going forward. And of course, then I will conclude my talk. So when analyzing software without having access to the source code, we need to carry out a process that is referred to as black box testing, where we treat the software as an opaque system where we feed in inputs and observe outputs. This analysis is heavily dependent on the specifications of the system under test, which the suit, because this will determine the test inputs and also be used to evaluate the observed outputs. When identifying a potential issue in the suit, it is often important to be able to determine whether the issue lies in the core software or in one of the libraries that the suit is using. And so our approach is to break up the suit into its main components and examine the interactions among them. In order to do this, we use two techniques for the analysis based on our previous work. The first one is using a wrapper that is inserted between the program and the actual library code. And this wrapper may contain special code that reports on its call and its arguments. This code may also decide whether to actually call the intended function or emulate it, report an error, or simply ignore it, or whatever we choose that the code does. It can also modify the input arguments and or the results returned by the call. In the second case, this one is more elaborate as it uses the kernel to intercept the transfer from main program to library or from library to library. And special code is run whenever a library is invoked. This code functions in a similar way as the wrapper-based approach, but it is better protected from interference from potentially malicious code since it's on the kernel side. In this presentation, I will describe the two techniques and how they may be used in a training environment to look for potential issues or vulnerabilities in code that is distributed in binary form. And as already mentioned, our design is based on a two-phase approach. First, we use a wrapper library that is inserted between the program and the original library code. Then the wrapper can identify and report each call and its arguments before allowing it to continue to the originally intended function, as well as perform some other action if properly configured. As I said earlier, maybe emulate it, ignore it, or etc. As we can see in this figure in step one, under our approach, when the application tries to call a function, let's say foo, inside the original library, this call is intercepted, and instead of the intended function, the secure wrapper version of it is executed in step two. Instrumented inside the wrapper, there is code that reports on the call and its arguments, which is first run before any other steps are taken in step three. Then the call continues normally, as we see in step four. In the second phase, the kernel intercepts the continued call after step 4. And here we leverage our previous work by introducing a modified Linux kernel that leverages the MMU, the memory management unit, in order to separate the memory of a running process into regions based on the statically dynamically linked libraries that the program is using. This is similar to the user space library, as described before, with the main difference that it's better protected from interference from potentially malicious code, since the redirection is performed on the secure kernel side. In order to do this, our system loops through all the memory regions of a running process and marks all the executable ones as non-executable. Of course, at each point in time, only the currently executing region remains executable, while all others are non-executable. And when the flow of execution is transferred to a different region than the current one, a page fault is caused since all the functions that are there that are located in that region are in non-executable memory. This intentional page fault allows us to intercept all the calls to the libraries, analyze them, and possibly take some other form of action before handling the fault and continuing execution. Next, the currently executable region is marked as non-executable, and this whole procedure is repeated from the beginning. Now, how we did this? With our technique, we monitor calls to external functions inside the protected library, both on the user as well as on the kernel side. On the user side, we create the wrapper by extracting all the relevant functions from an instrumented library and adding code that, before calling the originally intended function, verifies that the call indeed captured the wrapper. Indeed captured the call. We then visualize the interception by producing a report that displays text-based information about the call. For example, the name of the function, which parameters are passed to the function, etc. This way, we can provide a forensic trail to identify the functions executed. For example, as we can see in this figure, when starting an OpenSSL server, which is instrumented in this case, initialization phase takes place, where we can see information about the sequence of function calls along with their arguments and pinpoint where a potential vulnerability is triggered. Continuing to the next phase of the implementation on the kernel side, we go through the list of processes that the kernel has in store, and for each process identify the regions of contiguous virtual memory. These regions are called virtual memory areas, or VMAs for short, that are executable, and mark them as non-executable by changing their access rights, which is done in point 5 in the figure. At this point, when a process tries to execute a function from a library, it will land on an address in a non-executable area in point 6, which will result in a page fault in point 7. Before the system handles the fault, we interject our customized code inside the page fault handler in order to monitor the call and report on its occurrence. Next, we execute the intended function. We mark the previous memory area as non-executable and the current one as executable as long as they are different. And we do this because, as I said earlier, we perform this at the library level granularity. So let's consider, for example, an instance of the Nginx HTTP server. And we can see here from this excerpt of the output of our approach, both cases, we can distinguish here both cases where the current executable or library is both different and the same compared to the previous one. We can see that in lines 5 through 9, the flow of execution is inside the main executable. More specifically, in line 6, we can see that when the fault occurs, the VMA is non-executable. As we can see, there's no X letter in the red box. And continuing, we mark the current VMA as executable in line 7. The X appears, the letter X appears. And since previously in lines 1 through 4, the flow was inside a different library, in this case libp thread, that library is now marked as non-executable in line 8. However, in the next iteration, in lines 10 to 13, the VMA doesn't change, which means that the executable, it remains executable as before, as we see in lines 11 and 12, because as we said, we split the memory on a per library basis. Following, I will present the two scenarios that are included as exercises in a seminar program at the Technical University of Braunschweig, as well as the threat arrest training platform. namely software exploration, which is a beginner level course, and runtime analysis and modification, which is more advanced. In the first scenario, a user that is trained on using our system must observe the occurrence, the number, and the sequence of calls and try to identify if and when an attack happens. In this case, we use a vulnerable version of the Nginx HTTP server where a buffer overflow is triggered under specific circumstances to launch a DOS or arbitrary code execution attack in order to compromise the application. The trainee is expected then to identify which functions are called inside the library, the OpenSSL library, what these functions perform, and the characteristic sequence of calls to executables libraries, as well as the number of consecutive internal calls that correspond to the exploit and produce a trail of it, which means create the exploit signature. After the initial introduction, the software exploration, to software exploration, the trainee is given the opportunity to continue to the more advanced level. They are allowed to install a piece of software, read its documentation, and run some examples. Then the trainee is shown the block diagram of the program and related libraries and is asked to create a call graph showing the control flow paths between elements of the system. Further analysis may, of course, be used to identify several items of interest, IOIs, in the design, for example, creation of a network connection, access to a file, etc. For each identified IOI, a decision needs to be made as to whether it is worth monitoring, and if so, to which extent. After running the program a couple of times under our framework to collect invocation data, the trainee can start the process of active interference in the execution of the program by modifying arguments to functions or return values, etc. In both cases, the trainee must produce a report with their findings based on which they are evaluated at the end of the scenario. Of course, this can be adapted to fit any platform, as we did in the case of threat arrest, where the evaluation is performed automatically. The trainee answers a few pre-made questions, and the evaluation is handled by the system. So as far as plans for the future go, we have a few ideas on how to proceed. Another aspect of our approach can be to determine all the relations among all the memory areas that we separate a running program to. So perform reachability analysis. This is essentially a reachability analysis. Will specify the areas that can be executed by other areas and produce a call graph with all direct and indirect paths. This information can then be included in security policies, which our mechanism can check at runtime to determine if a call from one region to another is permitted. Another direction is to have private pages assigned to each region of the running process. These private pages are accessible only when running code from a specific region, protecting this way its data structures. For example, it may make them completely inaccessible to the rest of the regions of the same process. Continuing, if we could maintain state across region invocations, we could also check whether the call is appropriate to the current state of execution. In other words, calls that are compatible with the known behavior of the program must now occur at the appropriate phase of execution. Security policies can also be updated with this information to be more comprehensive. Depending on a library size, insufficient memory segmentation may leave enough attack surface for adversaries. Another idea is to componentize a library in finer granularity. We have actually implemented this on libc, where we extract some of the library's functions and build them into separate libraries. Similarly, for example, let's say to libm or libcrypt that libc is using. And then in order to run a program, we link a library with it at compile execution time. This way, we minimize the attacker's available code base and create more inclusive security policies. So to wrap up, in this work, we present a monitoring framework that uses two techniques based on our previous work: a library wrapper that is inserted between a program and the original library code, and the kernel modification that intercepts all calls to libraries executables. This framework can be applied to multiple real-life scenarios in order to monitor or alter the execution of a program and report any suspicious or malicious activity. Furthermore, we present 2 training exercises where we give the trainee the opportunity to explore how the program behaves and modify its execution when under attack. And finally, we extend our approach to break up libc up into smaller regions. So that was it. Any questions? Thank you. Let me stop sharing. Okay. I don't see any questions in the Q&A. Yes, I see a question from Stefanos. Yes, it is open source, of course. It's actually a modification of the Linux kernel, the latest version, and of course the libc, the glibc, the GNU libc. So it's open source. Yeah. Any other questions? I don't see. So okay, let's. Whoever one of you wants to join us in the virtual. Okay. What is the performance hit from the wrapper and the entire cycle? I don't have the numbers at hand so far. I mean, I have them in my papers. I have to check because it's already published work. But if I remember correctly, I think I do. It's less than 2%, at least for in the case of the Nginx HTTP server. So it's very lightweight. I still, because it's ongoing work, I still haven't had the chance. It's for the immediate future to evaluate the performance for the libc componentization, but I believe that it will be in the same vicinity. Okay, we are 3 minutes of schedule. Let's, if anyone of you wants to join us in the virtual room, you can use the link that Eneko sent in the chat. So thank you everyone for attending, and hope to see you in the virtual room.